Hello and welcome to the chess workshop where the brain is our grinder. And today we are going to have a look at this endgame right here, king and queen against king and rook. And after this video, you're not only going to win this endgame with white here, but you also made some major improvement in your calculation skills, which is very important at all levels. And yeah, to begin, how can we win this endgame here? And you have to know two important things. The first is that to win this endgame, we have to separate the king from the rook. And the second thing is that after we separated the king and the rook, we're going to win the rook, and then we can checkmate easily with queen and king against king. And you know already how that works. So, and literally here in this position as black to move, and we have to calculate all the possible moves there are. And this sounds this sounds big, but it's actually not that big as it sounds, because we can cancel out a lot of moves from the beginning. And well, let's go ahead and find some of these easy moves, let's say, that lose immediately for black. And let's start with king a6. And king a6, well, it moves the king and the rook in the same diagonal, which allows white to play queen c8 here to pin the rook. And then after the king moves, we can take the rook, and then it's checkmate in a few moves. So king a6 doesn't work. And let me mark a6. Oops, let me mark a6. So king a6 doesn't work, that loses immediately. And then we can keep on. For example, let's see, here we got, I don't think I have it in here, but black could play, for example, rook b6 check. That loses also immediately, because we can just take away the rook on b6, and then in the next move we can checkmate. So this was also an easy one. Another easy move like that would be rook c7. That loses immediately. Or rook d7, for example. We could take the d7 rook either with the queen or with the king. Another easy one is rook to e7, which loses immediately because we can just take away the rook with the queen. And then let's go back on the b file, because that was it for the 7th rank. So here, for example, I just wanted to mark the square because it's too easy. Rook b5, we can capture the rook with the king. And let's see, there is another one, namely rook b8. Well, let me move rook b8 actually. This is kind of a nice one, because now the rook on b8 is blocking as his own king, and we can checkmate in one move by playing queen a5 checkmate. So rook b8 also loses immediately. And there are two more moves that lose immediately because of tactics. And this is rook b4. Immediate tactics, immediate double attack actually. Rook b4 loses immediately to queen a5 check. As I said, double attack against the rook and the king right here. So this also loses immediately. And then there's, no, actually I was wrong, I'm sorry, there's now there's two more. We got rook b2, and this loses to queen d4. Again, double attack. So let's mark rook b2, that loses the rook immediately, and then there's also rook to g7, and let's have a look at rook g7 real quick. It loses to the same move, queen d4 check, double attack, and after that we know how to win the endgame after we take the rook on g7. Okay, so from here actually you can see that after all these moves there are only, let me make the screen, there are only 4 moves left that we actually have to calculate deeper. And let's start by playing rook b3 here. And I want you to pause the video and have a look at the board and calculate yourself or try to find the solution here after rook b3. And I can give you a hint. You can achieve, you can win this position, or you can find the solution. That's a better way to say it. You can find the solution by kind of wishing something. And what I mean by that is you can look for your queen and look for a square where the queen can give another make another double attack against the king and the rook. And for example, after rook b3, and I can leave you that hint, a4 would be a nice square. And yeah, pause the video. I gave you the hint. Look for a nice square for the queen where she can double attack king and rook. And after that, yeah, we win the rook and then we can checkmate. So I hope you pause the video and try to solve it yourself, this position here. And now I'm going to show you the solution. And the first move is queen d4 check. And here the black king has, actually he has 3 options. He has a8, b8, and a6. Let's start with the easiest one. This is a6, and after a6, it's not only a double attack, it's also a checkmate after queen a4. So king a6 doesn't work. Now let's have a look at king a8. And well, as I said in the beginning, we want to go to a4, and now the king is still on the a file and the rook is on b3, so we can make our double attack on a4. So king a8 doesn't work either, we win the rook. And so that leaves only king b8. And here we have to, we have to find another square for the queen. And in the beginning, the king was on a7, right? So maybe we can force the black king back to a7, or back to the a file. Actually, we only have to achieve that. We have to force him back to the a file, and we want to be able to play queen a4 after that. And at the same time, we have a checkmate threat, but you'll see that here in a second. And that move is queen f4 check. And here maybe you can already see that, for example, king c8, if the king wants to escape, basically, that doesn't work because we can play queen f8 checkmate. And here you observed another example of how you can win this endgame. Sometimes we can also use checkmate threats to win the rook because the king has no other options. If he, for example, here, if he plays king c8, that would be checkmate after queen f8. So the best option is, of course, to go back on the a file, either a7 or a8, that doesn't matter. So here we go back to a7, and now we can play queen a4, and we win the rook again, and with that the endgame. And this was rook b3, and we can also mark this square yellow. Now let's finish off the b file, and let's see what happens after rook b1. And here you have to ask yourself the same question: where could I place my queen to have a double attack against the king and against the rook? And this would be a2 or h7 actually. And yeah, again, pause the video and try to find it yourself. Okay, I hope you paused the video and try to find the solution yourself. And now I'm going to show you how to win this here. And this time we have to start a little bit different. We start by playing queen e7 check. So now the king only has a8, because after a6 it's checkmate immediately by playing queen a3. So the king goes to a8. And here we have to kind of make a zigzag move with the queen to be able to go to h7 and then deliver the double attack. And how are we going to do that? Well, we're going to go to h7 step by step. We play first queen f8 check. Now the king only has one, or black only has one option. He has to go back to a7, because after rook b8 we can just checkmate on a3 immediately. So the black king goes back to a7, and here we have to change the color of the squares, right? We want to go to h7. This is a light square, so we have to change the colors with the queen, the square color, and then we follow again the zigzag. So here we play queen f7, queen f7. The king once again only has a8 or b8. That doesn't matter. And here now we follow the zigzag again. We play queen g8 now. And here we force the black king back on the a file and on the 7th rank. So the king goes to a7. And here the final move is queen h7. And we give a check, and at the same time we attack the rook on b1, and we win the rook. So this doesn't work either. Rook b1 is also not possible. This one here was a little bit longer, but as I said in the beginning, that calculation is very important at all levels. And this is, I think, a nice exercise which also not only tells you how to win this particular endgame, but also teaches you about the characteristics about the queen and about calculation, about double attacks. So this is a nice endgame to practice. And here we finished the b file. So now we look at the 7th rank again. And the first move we look at is rook f7. And here, after rook f7, we have to ask ourselves the same question: where do we want to have our queen? And this time I'm not going to show it. And I hope you pause the video and find the solution yourself. Okay, I hope you found the solution, and now I'm going to show you here on the board. This time we start again with Queen d4, which forces the black king on the 8th rank, since King a6 is not possible because of Queen a4 checkmate. So the king goes to a8, and now we have to go actually back with the queen, but that keeps us in front, if I can say it that way. So we play Queen a1 check here. We force the black king on the b file, and we have to literally use the entire board. And you see that here there's two options. King b8, that's the best option for black. But if black plays Rook a7, for example, we just go from one corner of the board, we go into the other corner and deliver checkmate. So we literally use the entire chessboard. So this doesn't work. So Queen a1, King b8, and here we play Queen e5 check. And after King a8 or King a7, that doesn't matter. Let's see what happens after King a7. This is the main move. Now we play Queen e3 check, and we force the king back on the 8th rank, but at the same time we got our queen on the e file, which means we can reach our destination square. For example, after, of course, King a6 is Queen a3 checkmate. So the king goes to a8, and now we can finally play Queen e8, which was our destination square, and deliver the double attack. And yeah, King a8. And if black plays King a8 immediately, then we can go ahead also with Queen e8 right here, with double attack and winning the rook. So we can mark this one also yellow. This doesn't work. And then the only move that's available is Rook to h7. And here, once again, pause the video and try to find it yourself, and think about where do you want to have your queen to be able to give a double attack and then win the rook. Okay, I hope you found the solution yourself. Now I'm going to show you here on the board. First, we play Queen a5 check. The king only has one option, King b8. Now we play Queen b4. Well, the king has two options. After King c8, we already know that that's not good if the king moves into the opposition. We can play Queen f8 checkmate. So the king has to go to a7. And now we can actually do the same thing as we did when the rook was on b1. You remember when the rook was on b1, we went with the queen to h7 and made the double attack. And now we're gonna do actually the same thing, just the way around. We want to go to b1, so we play Queen a3 here. Now King b8, only move. And here it is very important, like in the other position where the rook was on b1, we have to switch the colors with the queen. We have to go on a light square. We play Queen b3 check. And of course, we always have the option of checkmate. So if the king here, for example, goes to c8, we can just play queen g8 checkmate. The king has to go back to a7. Now we play queen a2, we follow the zigzag. King goes back to b8, only move. And now the final move is queen b1, and we attack the rook and give a check, so double attack, and with that we win the rook and then the game. Okay, so you can see that actually in the end it was not that hard, because we could cancel out a lot of options right from the start, and there were only 4 options actually left over that were really hard to, or not really hard, but we had to calculate. And I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you learned a lot, and for more chess content, follow and subscribe my channel.